It's another episode of Demo Disc on Higher Plane Games, episode 6. And I'm back with some more demos that I've tried out for a maximum of 15 minutes to see whether I liked them or not. And spoiler alert, this one's more of a mixed bag than usual. I'm kicking off with Hermit and Pig though, which was a fantastic RPG. It's ditzy, klutzy, and silly and goofy in the best way possible. You play as a hermit with his sidekick Pig that just oinks at everything, running around collecting different mushrooms to go and cook for dinner. But there is a food revolution going on outside of the forest that you are called to go and help and support. The cool thing I like about this is that the battle system sees you putting in different inputs and then triggering attacks, but the different attacks it's a bit mix and match depending on the type of enemy that you're facing, whether they're in the air or on the floor, as to whether you want to kick and stomp them or use a catapult to try and hit them out of the air. And then as you try and get a critical attack, that's then timing based. Is a timing move meter moves up and down, and you need to then hit the timer in the critical window, as well as blocking with timing stuff too. I love it when an RPG does turn-based stuff, but you are more engaged in it. And Hermit and Pig does this exceptionally well, with good soundtrack, stupid humour, well-written dialogue, not just on back and forth between Hermit and Pig, but just the general world and everything that's around you. And there's a cool little trinket system which allows you to beef up Hermit as you upgrade Hermit itself to then have additional abilities or beefs of defense and health in the side. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. Straight onto my wish list, considering day one. The next game on this list is Children of Saturn, and it was by far the biggest vibe of this list. You play as a teenager with a retro video recorder, and it meshes in real-world footage, a bit like Cloverfield, where it's kind of taping over itself as you move between scenes with you and your mates, and a dystopian end-of-world kind of setting where the sky's turned orange. Now, you are punk rockers. There is a boombox being carried around to each of your scenes, which is playing some great rock music in the background. There's a little bit too much every other word is a swear word in this game, because we're trying to say that we're hip and cool, but also daggy kind of teenagers. And whilst I could definitely leave half the swearing to one side and still get away with a decent narrative, nothing quite sells such a unique, angry, end of world, so what's the point vibe, quite like what Children of Saturn did in this demo. It was only a few minutes long, but it really held me captivated in the whole way how this game was set up. Absolute vibe, straight on my wish list, day one purchase. Next up is War of the Western Deep, which is apparently a comic online, but I had no idea. And this is now a point-and-click adventure game with some combat on the side. With my self-imposed 15-minute time limit, I didn't get massively far into this demo, but what I did discover I really enjoyed. Excellent writing, superb voice acting, and I liked the way how you could focus in on different interactive objects in each environment, and then the first time you interacted with it was kind of like this is what it's all about, and then it would let you kind of interact with it and start moving things around or kicking off a puzzle or collecting things. Your inventory was easy to deal with and select the right object to then go and say, like, chop a bush, for example, in the demo. And there were some nice light puzzles that were relatively easily solved once you'd got the right things together, so that the character then went, aha, I know what I'm doing. But really well sold, love the world setting. Obviously I'm new to this world because I've not read the comic book, but the world building and the character development, and just I really felt at home with this world immediately and can't wait to explore it more. Straight onto my wish list and probably a day one. Next up is Rita, which is a fantastic mashup of a 3D platform game and a crossword. And the idea behind this is that there are letters dotted around the world that you need to then 3D platform to collect. Sometimes needing to solve some puzzles along the way. But what you then do is bring up a crossword, which then, as you solve the words in the crossword, starts to paint in elements of the 3D environment for you to then complete missions or tasks, or now access new areas. So at the very beginning, one of the first words that you fill in the crossword is jump, to earn the jump ability, or stairs or ramp, to then be able to cross against different environments. But then that then changed from a crossword to a word search in the dream environments, or the memory levels, as they were called in the game. And this meant that you collected certain amount of letters that you could then find in the crossword that would then turn on and off different world elements for you to then traverse around the environment. Really unique. Absolutely loved the environment and the setting and the nature of it all, and the weird mashup of ideas. I've not played anything quite like this, and I don't think anyone else has either. So Rita is really on my wish list because it's so unique and fascinating, and I can't wait to play more. Talking of unique and fascinating, Plum Road T Dream is the next game on this list. It's a walking simulator by all accounts, at least it is in a demo, and it's trying to talk you through game development as a cipher and narrative for someone with their own personal struggles. And it's narrated over the top, trying to talk you through different 3D scanned worlds, but then some like clay sculptures start popping in, and it kind of ends with this narrative video trailer that kind of talks you through what's going to happen next. Again, I've not played anything quite like this outside of maybe the Beginner's Guide might be a good example of this. And there's also another couple of games. One's made very much of paper, but it's like, and the name's escaped me, but it's you're playing an unfinished game and trying to like break out of it. This has a similar vibe, but is purely walking simulator. And because it was so weird and odd, it's gone straight onto my wish list, and I want to explore more. Gigasword is the next game on my list, where you play as Ezra with a ginormous sword that obviously has a lot of weight to it. And this is the main crux of gameplay. If you're carrying the sword, you can't jump very high or move very fast. And so the sword is great for being able to pummel different enemies, although you can then jump and then kind of slash the sword down to try and stab enemies from their eyes from above, or just try and attack them from different other ways. But you'll only be able to kind of wall jump and really reach ladders from on high if you drop the sword and then go and do something else. Some of the interactions of where you drop down the sword then moves the sword to different locations, which then enables you to kind of jump up ledges and then get to where you need to get to. And then as you're doing that, you start to beat up different enemies in different locked rooms and then exploring the world of Gigasword around you. I really enjoyed this. It took me a little bit to get used to the fact of dropping down your sword to then go and do things and then get back to the sword so that you can then go, aha, now I can battle things again. But again, it was a really cool idea. I've seen it done elsewhere, but this had a certain je ne sais quoi style to it that I really enjoyed. And so this one's gone straight onto my wish list too. Also making it to my wish list is Clean Up Earth, but I broke the demo. This game is just like a painting simulator where you are pointing and instead of painting things, you are sucking up all of the debris and rubbish from different beaches as it is in a demo. But just be warned that if you start upgrading your equipment before you then unlock the next level, you get stuck because doesn't let you refund back the upgrades that you've already done, but it doesn't let you then unlock the next level because you've not got enough rubbish and upgrades when you've then recycled them to then unlock the next level. Hence you then have to wipe away your save data and then try again. This seemed really easy to pick up and play, very responsive, very simple and very chill, and apparently it's got co-op in the actual game itself, and then you can kind of monitor who's cleaning up the most in a level on a kind of mini local leaderboard. Really good fun, onto my wish list. This will be a nice casual brain dump game for me, where I don't have to think about much and feel like I'm doing good in the world. Next on my list is Heartlinks, a puzzle called Love. And I had to tap out on this demo because I got stuck really early on, but I really enjoyed the setup of this game. You are a schoolgirl called Ai who wants to declare her love for a boy, but the world around you is totally upside down and in a puzzle. And what you need to be able to do is to go through different classrooms in the school and find the keys to then unlock to then get to the next classroom or wing. But because the world is all stacked around and all over the place, what you're doing is using different keys to alter the gravity state of them. And you'll be working out in some puzzles which items to unlock from gravity from the air and drop them down so that it can then create a world where the key then kind of slides its way to the floor for you. Or it could just be that you need to kind of move different objects around to create space for you to then get through whilst they're hovering in the air. It was really quite cool, and there seemed lots of different ways to manipulate the same mechanics to create a variety of different puzzles, and the demo was showing me that until I got stuck. So yay, on my wish list. I think it's going to hurt my brain now. Next up is LUCID, and this is another 2D Metroidvania style game, but this one's very momentum based, and particularly around chaining up jumps and slashes. And so you could do a run, and then whilst you were sprinting you could then jump, press and hold jump, and then press it again, and you could get really, really far. But then you could slash in the air with something that would then let you slash through certain types of brick or like rivers in the sky. And then that would replenish some of your jump to then be able to go again. And so you're trying to work out how you can really parkour your way around these levels without ever touching the floor. It takes a lot of getting used to because it's about pressing and holding the jump, because as soon as you let go, you instantly start to fall down. And so it took a lot for me to untrain myself from lots of other platformers where you can kind of let go and then you've still got a specific arc going on. This stops your arc in your tracks as soon as you're not pressing a button. So once I started to get more used to that, LUCID became actually a real cool flow state game that I was nipping around very quickly in under 15 minutes. And so that's wet my whistle for hopefully something juicy to come in the future. So it's on my wish list. I'm looking forward to seeing more. Barda is the next game on my wish list that has made it on there, but I was also slightly confused as to how this game worked. It's also launching on Kickstarter as well, so if you find this game interesting, look at the demo and then see the Kickstarter afterwards. Barda is a roguelike, and you are climbing up these different mountain ranges trying to get to the top. And you've got a backpack that can be filled up with different objects that can help you survive different encounters that have percentages based on whether or not the equipment that you use is going to be successful or not, or whether it's going to end up damaged. As you climb, you then start to get fatigued and hungry, so you're going to need to find scraps to then feed yourself. And also you can get the fear of madness, where if you get lost in the mist or a bit too lonely, you need maybe a card game to try and keep your mental chatter down. This game seemed, on the surface, to be quite easy, then all of a sudden ridiculously hard, where all of your stats start to then build up against you and then kind of tank you immediately from nowhere. And that might have just been because of the route that I was choosing, because I didn't seem to hit across many enemies, and then all of a sudden I had 4 all at once and I was overwhelmed. But yeah, there was a lot at stake, and it didn't immediately tell me what status ailment was doing to another. So for example, in the demo I ended up becoming ill, and the illness was spreading across all of the things in my backpack, which was then making them much more useless to use, which then meant I was being overcome by enemy attacks and kind of just got stuck and didn't know how to progress. And this happened a couple of times, but from different perspectives. And so Barda needs to just be a bit better on its tutorialization so that I could then really understand what this game was all about and how to prepare better. But I love the aesthetic, I love the look of it, I like the theming of this. There seems to be an awful lot of climbing games going on at the moment, but I'm not complaining because Barda held my attention and has some good mechanics in there. I just feel like I needed to know more about them so that I could prepare better. We're now moving into games that didn't quite land with me so well, and the first of these is Princess of the Water Lilies. Now, this game has stayed on my wish list, but it was a real debate. And it's because as you move around as this cute kitten, it's very clunky with its collision detection as to whether or not it's going to land on a tree ledge or on the side of a rock face or something like that. And you're kind of cheesing it to get across an awful lot of the movement in this 2D platformer. And that works fine when you've not got any pressure on, but as soon as the ginormous boss comes along, this fire-breathing mechanical thing, all of that cheesiness starts to become panic because you're not quite sure if you've made the jump or not, and so you kind of end up getting stuck and then accidentally jumping once too many when actually you shouldn't. And then there's lots of fireball meteors kind of flying everywhere, and that seems to catch you off guard. And it goes from being relatively chill to absolute insanity really quickly, and there's no smooth difficulty curve, as you move between those. And I don't mind a hard boss battle, but it seemed really not in keeping with how the rest of the game was trying to be quite cutesy. I did quite like the aesthetic. I'm hoping that with finesse and polish, that movement and collision detection and cheesing that you have to do with the platforming becomes smoothed out. And so that's why it stayed on my wish list for now. Now, I talked earlier with Barda about needing tutorialization. Hell Dice Gambler needs blatant tutorialization because it gives you nothing and kind of goes, do you know what? Sort it out yourself. The idea is that you're in one-on-one battles, rolling dice to then either trigger attacks, build up a barrier, which is like a shield, or try and do some other special abilities, none of which are really explained. The problem with this is that when you roll dice, it's not necessarily just the faces of the dice that matter, although they do, in a way like Yahtzee does, where you've got to get certain combinations to then trigger certain moves. They then on top of them have like a shield or an attack or a skull or something like that, but it doesn't really tell you what any of these mean and how they then affect what your dice rolls are. And so this ended up becoming far more of a puzzle than I expected it to be. And I was super confused and I didn't know why I was winning. I didn't know why I was losing. And after 15 minutes, I still was none the wiser. And so I've removed this from my wish list. I'm very confused, but I didn't find it particularly enjoyable to play either because I didn't know what I was doing. And so let this be kind of a lesson, I think, to devs that want to drop you straight into the action. There needs to be something somewhere that kind of gives you at least the skinny notes of what you're supposed to do, because I had no clue. Another game that was interesting, but I didn't keep on my wish list either, was Tempo Punk. This is a FPS game, and I really struggle with these at the best of times, but I wanted to try this one out because it's rhythm-based. And so the idea was that you were supposed to be able to jump and slide and shoot to the rhythm of the music as you went around doing things. This game gave me a headache, and I think this is a very me thing rather than it being a wider thing. This is why I struggle with FPSs in general. I get motion sickness from them because they're too fast and they make me feel sick. This did exactly that, but what I will say is that the syncing up of music and rhythm and beat to actually doing attacks or dodging attacks did work. And so it wasn't really until I got to the final boss on the level that I played where it all synced up and I thought, yeah, I get this and it works and I like it in principle, even though it's making me feel quite unwell and queasy. Yeah, Tempo Punk's got something. I do think BPM probably does this slightly better at the moment, but Tempo Punk is trying to give something slightly different from BPM by also turning it into a bit more of a parkour FPS experience because of the amount of movement and sliding and jumping and running around that you have to do. Goob is the penultimate game on this edition of Demo Disc, and this is a mining game, but I got a bit stuck, again, lack of cues I think, in knowing exactly what it was that I was supposed to do and how I could get any progression in this game. And so I just ended up going around digging up minerals, upgrading my Goob as best as I could with the minerals that were available. But it felt very strange. And I don't know if just the demo didn't unlock something for me that allowed me to progress, but I just seemed to be stuck moving around in circles. But the mining mechanic seemed okay. But I think having recently played the Superb Machiner, Goob felt like a lesser version of all of that. And so I feel like I've already had my fill of good mining for minerals and having good fun with a story. And so that's why Goob hasn't stayed on my wish list, and I'd probably tell everyone go look at Machiner instead. And the last game on this list is Coreward, and this is an incremental shield-based deflect the things and then collect the debris. Your shield is on one half of your body, and then the collection kind of absorption ray that pulls in the debris to then upgrade on the skill tree is on the arse end of wherever your shield is. And so you're constantly trying to flip around between defending yourself and then trying to magnetize the debris in for you. I feel like this game reminds me too heavily of all of the Zillion 89p style games that are on the PlayStation Network that I've played far too many of and are now sick of. And so Coreward didn't really scratch an itch for me and felt too finicky and annoying to be a skill-based incremental. And so this was a pass for me, but I do think other skill-based incremental players and gamers might find something more from it than I did. And that's it for this edition of Demo Disc. I may be skipping next week because we've got Steam Next Fest coming up, and I think I'm going to be switching gears to make sure that I covered those instead. Let us know down in the comments if there is anything you liked. Bye-bye.